Well, friends, our next speaker is past Governor A.S. Venkatesh. He will tell us the literacy issues in India.
A.S. Venkatesh, more popularly known as Venki, is an engineering graduate from IIT Madras and a management graduate from IIM Ahmedabad. He runs a successful construction company based in Chennai. Venki served as district governor of RI District 3230 in 2007-8 and is particularly passionate about educating the girl child and has worked continuously in the field of empowering the girl child. He is also a member on the board of Rotarians for fighting AIDS. Ladies and gentlemen, please welcome PDG A.S. Venkatesh.
Thank you. Session Chair, Past Director Ashok Ji, friends in Rotary and friends of Rotary, good afternoon. I will try and not to repeat or reiterate the things that my friends Ashish and Ramchandra Rao had mentioned a while ago. So I'll cut out all those points. Instead, let's understand what the issues are in India with particular reference to India and what, as Rotarians, what we need to look out for or what we need to be aware of when we go to the field trying to implement our teach mission. A quick background on where we stand. A quick background. As you can see, the dark shades of blue on the screen are the ones which are well developed, well educated with over 90% of literacy rates. The problem areas are essentially restricted to Central Africa and South Asia. So we are in one of those regions. Now let's zoom in on to India. Where do we stand? Or South Asia, where do we stand? India is one of the lesser literate countries in South Asia. There are a couple of countries which have over 90% literacy in South Asia as well, which is Sri Lanka and Maldives. So when I was talking about this to some of my friends in the committee, they said, oh, Sri Lanka and Maldives are very small countries in terms of population, so that may not be applicable to something as populous as India. So I think we need not take that as a reference. So out of curiosity, I decided to check out another country which is just as populous or more populous than India, which was China. Doesn't come as part of the South Asia, but just for comparison purposes, I decided to look at what China is doing with a population greater than India. And what did I find? China has over 95% literacy. With a population beyond what we have of 1.2 billion or so, China has over 95% literacy, which means population really is not a deterrent. If you're really talking about numbers, it's not an issue. If a country like China can get over 95% literacy rates, why not India? As you can see, Sri Lanka and Maldives are way up there, over 90%. Now, there again, an issue which many of us are aware of, just to reiterate, there's also a huge gender disparity in literacy rates. India, when we talk about 74%, which is the national average, as of 2011 census, we still talk about 66 for females and 82 for males, which is almost a 16 percentile gap between male and female literacy rates. You can check out the other countries. So, zooming in again onto India, as of 2011, when the last official figures are available, we are at 74%. And even within India, we have a situation where some states are over 90% and some states are around 50%. And we are all aware of Kerala or Mizoram, which is over 90%, and there are some states which are hovering over 50%. So this map is self-explanatory there. The lighter shades, which in the central part and the northern parts of India, are the ones with the lower literacy rates, and the darker shades in the southern and the western parts of India are the more literate states. Now here, I know you cannot see the figures on the screen, but I want you to notice an arrow mark on the screen, which is the national average. All the states that fall to the left of that arrow are below the national average, and all those to the right are above the national average, which means every state has got a different issue that we need to tackle. Now, who are the stakeholders? We talked about the government being the major stakeholder in this. Yes, we are right. The various acts of the Government of India initiatives have brought us from over 17% when India got independence to 74% in 2011. So there has been a huge surge. So government being one of the biggest stakeholders. And who else are really the stakeholders in this issue of literacy. In fact, the important point to note is, if we go at this rate, over 50% of the illiterate population of the world will be in India by 2020, not too far away, about 7 years from now. Unless we do something about it, half of the illiterate population of the world will be in India. So it's time to act now. We cannot afford to waste even a minute more. We have had various speakers talk about the Government of India initiatives. I'm not going to dwell on those initiatives. A lot has been done. Now comes the important parts of who the stakeholders are and what they have to say about the situation today. Now let's look at the problem from a perspective of a student. What do the students say? I have generously borrowed from various research findings, including the probe report, which is very interesting. Those of you who can lay your hands on that report, it's very interesting to go through. So what do the students say? Of course, all of us know the students say teaching is just not interesting, or the school is too far away for me to commute. I cannot travel 8 kilometers up and 8 kilometers down every day, so I cannot go to school. Another important aspect is many students who are planning to drop out of school have said that parents are not supportive. I want to go to school, but my parents don't permit that. They don't want me to go to school. They want me to work instead. So which means as Rotarians, when we go to the field, in addition to putting up toilets and classrooms, we might also have to counsel parents, promote the cause of education amongst parents and not necessarily the students. So we have a different perspective of the whole thing. Who else is a stakeholder? Now let's look at what the teachers have to say. A friend, Ramchandra, was talking about teacher training. It's very important. Some of the teachers who were interviewed had something to say about what their abilities were, what their skill sets were. They said, we are not sufficiently trained. And those teachers had B.Ed qualification, which means they are trained for education. So when further probed about what do you mean when you say you are not sufficiently trained, they said, subject we can handle, but we do not know how to handle a class of 80 children. Probably there is a need to train these teachers not just in the subjects that they handle, but probably in child psychology. How to handle a class of 80, 85 children, which is more or less the norm in some of the states. So training the teachers in all the aspects of education is something very important when we go to the field, the large class size. They also talk about that time being taken up by non-teaching activities, election duties, polio vaccination, or population census, whatever. So they said we don't have enough time to attend to the main job on hand. Now, parents, when we talk about the next stakeholder, who are the parents of these children, what do they have to say? One parent in UP had said, I had put my child in school and it was supposed to be a free education thanks to this RTE Act. But the teaching is so pathetically poor that I still have to put my child for a separate tuition beyond class hours, which costs me money. So I might as well put my child in a school which charges fees. So what is this whole show about having free education? So there are issues which go beyond the obvious. There are, of course, economic issues. They're talking about a child going to school would deprive the household of an income, or there are quality of teaching issues, the availability of infrastructure issues, or the nature of the work of the parents. Many construction workers, for instance, they keep moving from state to state, so they cannot probably put the child in any school in one particular place. So each stakeholder has got a different perspective. So when we as Rotarians talk about this Teach mission, which over the next day, we would probably have each of those vertical detailed discussions on each of those subsets of Teach. But overall, when we look at it, the problem is quite complex. As Shekhar mentioned this morning, when we embarked on this pulse polio program, we knew what the vaccine was. In literacy, we still do not know what the vaccine is, but we know there is a disease. We still have to start with finding the vaccine, which is applicable to each of those areas. Each state in India would probably need a different vaccine. So our job starts with not just administering the vaccine, but in discovering the vaccine that is applicable to each part of India. Before I end, let me shock you with some alarming figures. You can read them, but I want to highlight 82% schools in Jharkhand don't have enough teachers. I'm not talking about 10%, 20%. I'm talking about 82% of schools in Jharkhand don't have enough teachers. 97% of the primary schools in Bihar don't have electricity. Amongst the primary schools, 97% of the primary schools in Bihar just don't have electricity. And a third standard student, 1 in 2, cannot recognize numbers from 1 to 100. This is the current scenario. When we say issues in India, it's a very, very complex set of problems, but moment we are aware of what the problems are, I'm sure we can find the solution. So let me end with a very enlightening set of statements. Our friend said 96% enrollment in schools, in primary school. Yes, it is true. Attendance is 66%. Out of the 66% who attend only the noon meal, during the noon meal time is actually 72% or something of that sort. So enrollment does not mean attendance. Attendance does not mean literacy, and literacy does not mean education. And as Kalyanta mentioned in the morning, education does not mean vocational competence or employability. So we have a set of problems to deal with, set of issues to deal with. So over the next 24 hours, I'm sure we will debate and come up with a plan which we will roll out. So our mission, total literacy, better education. Thank you.